In the sport of track and field, there are a few key barriers that automatically place you as world-ranked athletes. There's the sub-4-minute mile, there's the coveted sub-2:10 marathon, there's the sub-45-second 400 meters, and of course, there's the sub-10 in the 100. Achieving any of these times makes you one of the most talented and fastest athletes in the world. However, what happens when you achieve these numbers before you even graduate from high school? Well, that makes you a generational talent that can achieve times far before you're expected to do so. In the history of prep sports, one of the most insane stats is the sub-10 100. This is already a nearly unattainable number for someone under the age of 20. But as the years have gone on, something truly fascinating has been taking place in this event in high school sports. Here's a visual looking at every high school sub-10 ever achieved under any condition. Now, the first athlete to ever do this was Trayvon Bromell back in the 2013 season, when he ran a time of 9.99 seconds at the 2013 Southwest Classic. Yes, the wind was way over the allowable limit, but at the time, this really was a groundbreaking achievement that made running under 10 in high school seem that much more possible with legal wind. But as the years went on, no sub-10 was achieved for years and years. But then, during the 2019 season, Matthew Bowling ran his famous 9.97, and again the wind was rolling on the day as the Texas winds do get pretty strong, but all the same, another sub-10 was finally achieved. From 2010 through 2022, only Trayvon Bromell and Matthew Bowling had ever broken 10. But then in 2023, Issam Asinga managed to run under 10 seconds on 4 separate occasions, marking the new arrival of another high school great. But unfortunately, he was then banned for 4 years for a doping violation, so for the sake of consistency, we're not going to include him on this list. Now, after 2023, the stars aligned for another great to arrive, and that athlete was Christian Miller, who actually ran a 9.93 under wind legal conditions, which marked a new high school record, and he became the first high schooler to ever break sub-10 under legal conditions that stayed legal over the years. Miller even managed to make it to the Olympic trials final in the 100, where he placed a very respectable 5th in 9.98 seconds. Miller's arrival marked the single greatest year in high school 100 running, and with 4 sub-10s under any condition, this season had the most sub-10s in the history of prep running, and it seemed unlikely that this kind of year would be set to take place again. And notably, from 2010 through 2024, only 3 athletes had ever achieved this sub-10 mark, making a sub-10 in high school one of the rarest things to achieve, not just in athletics, but in all of sports. But then, 2025 took place. During this season, the floodgates opened up to some of the greatest 100-meter running that we have ever seen. And we should also mention that some of these sub-10s came when high schoolers were competing against the professionals. And let's just say that some pretty intense drama came from these situations, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So to get back to the statistics, in 2025, breaking 10 seconds became a brand new trend for high school runners. And even though the new official high school record was broken this season, as Maurice Gleaton and Tate Taylor both ran 9.92, we had a few other performances that resulted in faster times. So let's dive into what actually happened this season and answer the question, is the 100 meters about to get even faster with so much upcoming talent? In 2025, we had 4 new high schoolers break the 10-second barrier. There was Braden Williams, there was Gout, there was Tate Taylor with his 9.92, and there was Maurice Gleaton as well, as he ran a 9.92 in this year's U.S. Nationals. Now, for all of these times to happen in the same year could just be a coincidence. It could be the stars aligning and a random set of events where many of the best high school sprinters ever ran these times in one year. But it could also be a sign of better training, better shoes, better technology, and better understanding of the event. After the season reached its conclusion, there was really only one athlete that rose to the occasion against the world's best. Yes, Braden Williams ran a 9.82, but the wind was 6.0 during that race, which is practically hurricane conditions, so this kind of performance does have a pretty big asterisk next to it. But when it came down to the moment that counted, it was Maurice Gleaton that managed to clutch up, as he ran a 9.92 during this year's national champs. Now, a 992 would normally be fast enough to make the US team, but in a cruel twist of fate, Gleaton ran this time in one of the deepest and fastest 100 races in US history, as this 992 was only fast enough to place 6th. And just to get on the US team this year, you needed to run a 9.83 or faster, a time that was actually fast enough to win the world champs in both 2022 and in 2023. But for this season, this was just the standard to qualify. Now, this race for Maurice was proof that he could in fact compete with the best in the world when it really mattered. But the problem with this run was the timing. He was not training for this specific event. He was training for his state meet and also the high school championships, which took place about 2 months earlier. So somehow Gleaton managed to stay in shape through the entire summer, and he still stayed competitive with the best in the world. But if we do rewind back to June of this season, we can see Gleaton doing something absolutely legendary, and that was take down a field of professional athletes on their home soil. At this year's Star Athletics Sprint Series, Maurice Gleaton lined up against Kendall Williams, Terrence Jones, Crevant Charleston, Jalen Slade, and also Christian Coleman, the 2019 world champ and the 60-meter world record holder. By all accounts, Gleaton was set to do decent enough in this competition, but nobody expected him to win. However, during the qualification round, he actually took the W, running a 987 with wind just over the allowable at positive 2.4. Now, this time still converts to a wind-legal sub-10, and while this opening 100 certainly had some drama to it, the final was even more of a show, because with a finishing result of 982, Gleaton took down everyone in this field when they were going all out. But unfortunately, Gleaton did false start before this race took place, but he did decide to run under protest, so even though he did run a 982, this didn't count for any official purpose. But to see him beat Coleman and Williams like this was just fascinating. Now, the thing that really stuck out to me for this specific 100 was the fact that Gleaton seemed to be right next to Coleman by the 40 or 50 meter mark. Quite the feat considering that Coleman's start is literally one of the greatest ever, if not the greatest of all time. But then Gleaton opened up and found his way to the finish line first, and he actually took down both Coleman and Williams by more than 1/10 of a second. Now, as we mentioned before, a slight altercation did ensue after this race, and it seemed as though this was initially instigated by Gleaton, as he did look back at Coleman after crossing the tape, and it seemed as though he was doing some kind of trash talk. And even though Coleman seemed to try and talk to Gleaton and maybe calm him down, about 10 minutes later, we saw Coleman shouting at Gleaton. But thankfully, this was settled a few days later, as Gleaton reached out through Instagram and apologized for his actions, and Coleman accepted this apology, and things seem to be completely good now. There have been some crazy developments this season in high school sprinting, with the 100 meters taking the show for the most dramatic. We have never seen this many sub-10s under any condition during any season, so the question really does need to be answered. What is happening? Is it technology in the shoes? Is it better racing? Is it better understanding? Well, I think it's a little bit of everything. Shoes really have come a long way over the past couple of seasons. There's new technology in the spikes, new technology in carbon plates. There have been some great improvements, but also in 2025, I think that understanding of this event has really taken a big leap forward as well. We're starting to see athletes look stronger, we're starting to see athletes put together more mature races. Things just seem to be developing for the better in the men's 100. And with this in mind, I would love to hear from all of you about this specific event. What do you think about Maurice Gleaton? What do you think about Tate Taylor? What do you think about Braden Williams? And also shout out to Gout Gout, who technically is still in high school even though he's in a different country. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.